Hey guys! So, on this episode, I wanted to do the continuation of my story. I ended the last story off as me trying to kill myself in August of 2012. My dad had passed away in January of 2012, and I was in this spiral of depression, victimhood, and I just felt at the time that life would be better without me, which was very sad considering I had a son and a husband and a life and so much to live for. And I was only 23. But in my head, and this is common with people who drink a lot, in my head, I was better off dead. After I was released from the hospital in 2012, I went back to drinking. I was trying to control it. If you've ever heard an alcoholic talk about their stories, usually it goes through the process of them saying how they try to control their drinking. I'm no different. I tried to control my drinking, only drinking beer, only drinking wine, only drinking after a certain time, only drinking on weekends. And for a while, it sort of kind of worked, meaning I just thought I got better at hiding it. I was that alcoholic who would hide beer in all sorts of places. And it was so obvious. It's so obvious now. Back then when I was drinking, I just didn't know. I was oblivious to how obvious it actually was. Fast forward to December of 2012, New Year's Eve, I attempted to stop drinking. I came to this realization that, first of all, I wanted to have another baby. And second of all, my marriage was shit. And my husband was giving me threats and stuff, as spouses typically do. When their loved one continues to drink, they try all sorts of controlling methods to help the person who's a heavy drinker. It doesn't work. It didn't work for me. Maybe you're different, but it didn't work for me. It just made me hate myself more. But I tried. I tried to stop. So New Year's Eve of all days, I'm like, fine, I'm not going to drink anymore. Let's start the 2013 off right. So I didn't drink all day on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. And that night I had a small sip of alcohol, a small sip of beer. And within 30 minutes, I had a grand mal seizure. I was shaking on the floor. I have no memory of actually having a seizure. I just know about 10:30 p.m. at night on New Year's Eve, I was in the hospital having woken up from a seizure. I would love to say again that I stopped drinking afterwards, but I didn't. I didn't stop drinking. If anything, I was afraid to stop drinking at that point, because if I stopped drinking, it would kill me. And if I drank, it would kill me. So why wouldn't I drink? Why not? So January came around, found out we were moving from Washington State to California, and there I was hiding my alcohol, trying to function, not really functioning at all, just getting worse, getting sicker, getting more into that ism that a lot of people in 12 steps groups talk about. And the beginning of February, we moved from Washington State to California. And once there, a few weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. Here's the scary part, and here's how I know looking back that I'm an alcoholic, if I choose to label myself, which sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Here's how I know I had a drinking problem. When I found out I was pregnant, I couldn't stop drinking. I didn't know how. I was so afraid. I kept buying alcohol. I kept saying I wasn't going to drink. I wouldn't drink, but I would be staring at it. And then I would be wondering, well, what if I just took a drink? Thankfully, this one time of controlling measures did work, and I didn't drink. And I was able to stay sober throughout my entire pregnancy and deliver a beautiful, healthy baby girl. And then I stayed a dry drunk for another 15 months by breastfeeding. I used my daughter as a reason not to drink by breastfeeding her. I never understood the lengths that people would go to not drink until I was in that situation of praying to a God I didn't believe in and praying to the universe to just not let me drink so that I could be pregnant and have a healthy baby, and not drink so that I could be a good mom, and all these ridiculous things just going on and on and on. But it wasn't enough. See, here's the deal. For me, I couldn't stop drinking for anybody else. I couldn't stop drinking for my kids. I couldn't stop drinking for my husband. I couldn't stop drinking for my parents. I couldn't stop drinking for even myself for a long time. I just couldn't. A lot of people struggle to understand why, if you have a drinking problem, you just can't stop. And this is why a lot of people enjoy the 12-step recovery, because they say once you get to a certain point in your life, you flip a switch, and that switch changes for you. It means you don't have the mechanism to allow yourself to stop anymore. And for me, it's kind of true. I know if I was to drink beer or alcohol today, that switch would be flipped. Maybe I wouldn't kill myself tomorrow, and maybe I wouldn't be completely trashed within minutes, but within a day, I would be drinking those 30 beers again. And I would be right back where I started, or worse, probably dead. For me, there's no one drink. There's 30 drinks, there's death. There's no one drink. There's no if only I could. It doesn't work for me. When I started drinking in April of 2015, I thought it would be different. I thought I would just be that cool mom who attends the PTA meetings and has the glass of wine for the charity event that we're doing. And it turns out I'm not. I'm not that cool mom. I'm not that mom that's able to hold her shit together while drinking. I'm the mom that gets wasted in the corner and hates myself. I'm the mom that would rather stay at home if I'm drinking and hide my drinks. I'm the mom that for a long time would hide beer and other things inside of diaper bags, inside of the bathroom, in all kinds of places. That's the kind of drunk I was. Thankfully today I'm not a drunk. I don't have to drink today, but I used to be. And it's not that far away. It's not that far long gone. 3 years and 5 months, 1,257 days ago, I was that mom. I was that mom with 2 kids, miserable, depressed. I didn't know how to survive. I didn't know how to live. I didn't know what it meant to feel. I didn't want to feel. I wanted to be a good mom, but I wanted to have that crutch. Every day I drank with my kids, I would tell myself I would wait until a certain time. And then that time would come, and I would sit there and pound beer after beer after beer after beer, because I was a beer drinker. It wouldn't matter if I ate. It was just about drinking beer. And if I ate, it would ruin the drunk. And for a while, maybe April, maybe May, June, it was fine. And by fine, I mean it was barely acceptable. I was barely holding it together. Probably wasn't hiding it from anybody. But I thought I was. June and July, summertime hit, parties and the beach and what I thought I was supposed to be doing. It meant I had to be home nonstop with the kids. I didn't know how to handle that. I love my kids dearly. And for any mom watching this, maybe you can relate to this. I love my kids dearly, but there comes a point when moms, parents, people with children, they need breaks for our mental health. We can love our kids, but if we're not taking care of ourselves too, nobody's benefiting. Because then we look for other ways to cope. We look for other ways to turn off our minds for even 5 minutes just to relax. And that's what I was trying to do by drinking, except for I didn't have that 5-minute warning. I didn't have that 5-minute maximum. I didn't have that cutoff switch of when is too much, too much. So I would just drink and drink and drink and drink. And by August, it was bad again. It was bad. August 2015, I had signed up to do a 5K run. I wanted to do it with the moms group that I was a part of, and so I was super excited. I just kept thinking, let me just keep drinking so that I get it out of my system. So a few days before, I won't drink so that I can be prepared for the 5K. So a week before, I got totally wasted, and the kids were spending time with grandparents, and I got even more depressed because alcohol is a downer. It makes you depressed. At first, you may feel like you're all happy and stuff, but at least for me, and I can only speak for myself, it made me horribly depressed. And so August 19th, I tried to kill myself. Once again, those same old thoughts of, I'm not good enough, the world's better off without me, my kids would be better off living with their grandparents because their mom is just a drunk, no good person who's trapped people into lives they don't want to live. And so, drank a few beers, popped some pills, ended up in a hospital, and for the first time in my life, I was stuck there. I had a security guard guarding me. They told me I couldn't leave. They told me I was on suicide watch. They told me that I was going to be shipped to a mental institution where I would be stuck there until they've deemed me mentally capable of being released. I had no rights. I was stuck in a place that I didn't want to be. I thought I had wanted to die, but when the alcohol went away, I didn't want to die. I couldn't walk. I couldn't hold myself. I remember sitting in the ambulance as they were transferring me to the mental hospital, and I was just looking out the window thinking, how did I get here? How did I go from being a young 19-year-old happy girl to this depressed 27-year-old? What happened? What went wrong? Why? None of those things really mattered, but it gave me something to think about. Then we got there, and they rolled me inside, and I just saw all these people, all these sick people. And I kept thinking of them as, these people are sick. I'm not sick. They're sick. And so they checked me in, and they told me, like, you got to go to group meetings, and you have to eat, and all this stuff. And so here I go, and I try to stand up, and I realize my legs don't work. And I couldn't carry my bag of stuff. And I didn't have my phone or a wallet. I didn't have anything. No shoelaces, no earrings, no rings, nothing. Those things are all deemed a risk because you're suicidal. So the first day I was in there, I forced myself to eat, and then I finally got energy. And then I went to meeting after meeting where they told me that, hey, you're probably an alcoholic. I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. I just like to drink alcohol. Big difference. I can stop anytime I want, except for I realized as my hands were shaking and my body's convulsing that I was going through a detox, and it was scary, and I didn't like it. 3 days later, I got released from the Oakland Mental Institution. And I went home, and they told me that I should go to a alcohol treatment outpatient program. And so I went for the first appointment, and they told me that I'm an alcoholic and that I need to do a pee test, and that if I don't do this, I'm going to end up dead, and all these other huge things. But here's the truth. I didn't care. I was fixed. I went to the hospital, I detoxed, I didn't need to drink anymore. No big deal. I was cured. I was cured. But I wasn't. Within weeks, I was drinking. I was more controlled this time. I was like keeping track on my phone, like writing tally lists, doing better. And then November hit, and I was not doing better. It was the holiday season. Everybody was drinking and jolly, and things were supposed to be about family, and yeah. I just started drinking and drinking and drinking. Somehow I got through Thanksgiving. I was drunk. I got a turkey done, I think, and put it on the table before I passed out. don't honestly remember. I told everybody I was sober. I had joined some online recovery groups and was like sober, but I wasn't. I was trying to be, but I didn't understand how to be sober. How do people get sober? How do they survive without drinking? How do they survive the feelings in life? How do they do things with all these feelings? December 5th, I went to my husband's holiday party. It was a yacht on the San Francisco Bay. It was beautiful. Everybody was drinking and jolly, and I was just wandering around miserable as everybody's drinking and jolly, and I'm somewhat sober. But I knew I had some beer waiting at home for me, and I was just counting down till I could drink it. After the party, I went home and I drank. And I drank the next day. And I drank the next day. And on December 10th, I was still drinking, still alive. I hadn't stopped drinking except for when I was sleeping. And I went to my first 12-step meeting, drunk. And I walked in, I saw all these weird people in this weird stinky room with these weird walls and this weird Christmas tree and it was just so weird. And they just kept on saying, keep coming back. It works if you work it. Easy does it. Like all this stupid stuff. And all I kept thinking was, I'm not like these people. I'm young. I come from a relatively good home. I have beautiful kids. I have a car. I don't have a DUI. I'm not like these people. And then I remember this one guy shared something. And he said, once you go to a 12-step meeting, alcohol never tastes the same again. And it pissed me off because, I had a beer waiting in my car for me. And so I'm like, well, fuck this. Like, he's wrong. He's so wrong. And I left the meeting with a bunch of phone numbers I didn't want of old people and weird people and all these people who labeled themselves as alcoholics, but I wasn't one. And I went back home, and my husband eventually came home, and I told him that I'm going to go to another AA meeting because the previous night I had spent in the hospital, and the night before that I had spent in the hospital because he was tired. He was tired of me being drunk. He was tired of me not taking care of the kids. He was tired of me passing out from being drunk and having to rely on his parents. And so he was tired. He had written me earlier and said that he was going to divorce me. And so I'm like, I'm going to go to AA. And so I grabbed the last bottle of alcohol in our house, which was a bottle of champagne my dad had given me, and popped the top, and I left him with the kids and did something I swore I would never do. And I drove drunk. And I was drinking champagne, and I drove around, and I don't really have much memory. I blacked out / browned out. But I guess I was calling him and sending him to find me. And eventually he found me, and he got me out of my car and put me in his car where my 2 kids were in the back seat. And all I remember is when I woke up from the brownout and I saw my kids in the back seat, I was so afraid. My kids were seeing me drunk. They were seeing me in a way I had never wanted them to see. They saw me talk to a police officer so disrespectfully. I'm the type of alcoholic that when I drink, I have a Jekyll and Hyde personality. So I can talk to one person and be the sweetest person in the world. And I can talk to the next person and I can be the meanest person in the world. So one police officer would talk to me and I'd be so compliant and willing to go to the hospital and not get a DUI and not have my kids taken away from me. And the next police officer would come and talk to me and I'd be like, screw you. You're an a-hole. Just take me to jail. And then I kept on looking in the back seat because I would remember my kids are there. And I'd be like, oh, I don't want to lose my kids. My kids helped save my life that night. And maybe one day they'll realize it. Maybe one day they won't. But my kids helped me stay in a point of sanity where I was sane enough to ask to go to the hospital instead of arguing with the other officer and going to jail. They could have arrested me. I was drunk. I was sitting behind the steering wheel of a car. I didn't have keys in the ignition, thankfully, but my kids were with me. My husband was sitting on a curb talking to them, but I went to the hospital. Once there, they told me I had to stay overnight because my blood alcohol was 0.3 something. I had been drinking for days. I hadn't ate anything. I was at high risk for a seizure. They tried to make me take some pills that I spit in their face. I tried to run away from the hospital. I tried to hit a doctor. I called a psychologist a stupid shrink. I was belligerent, drunk, disorderly. At any point, they could have had me arrested. But there was a nurse and that one police officer that saved my life that night. They both did, as well as my kids. Because they just kept on saying, maybe you should get help. If you can't do it for yourself, do it for your kids. Sometimes we can't start the process for ourselves because we don't think we're worthy enough. I didn't think I was worthy enough. I thought I was worse than garbage. I thought that my kids would be better off with someone other than me raising them. I thought that dying would be the better option than taking care of them because I didn't think I could stop drinking. And I knew if I kept drinking that one day I would endanger them. And I couldn't bear to live with that possibility. And so the night I went to the hospital was the last night I've ever drank. One day at a time, that stupid fucking cliche from 12-step groups, it's true. It's the only thing that saved me for these past 1,257 days. It's the only thing that I can 100% say that works is just staying in today. Today may suck, but tomorrow's a new day. So if I can just survive 1 more minute, 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes, until the day is over and I can go to sleep, then it's okay. So thanks for listening. That's my backstory, and next episode I'll talk about the beginning of sobriety, the beginning of feelings, the beginning of my life today, how I've gotten this far, why I'm in India, why I'm no longer married. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening.